Is Alex Albon really as slow as people are making him out to be? That is the question that we are going to be answering today. So my name is Alex, as F1 Stuff, and today, as I have just said, we will be going over Alex Albon's performance so far in 2020. So there have been 3 races as of yet. Austria again, but called a different name, Styria, and Hungary. Each track had slightly varying conditions. Austria race 1, dry and dry. Austria race 2 in Styria, wet qualifying, sort of overcasty sort of race. And Hungary, just a completely different track, different set of corners, different car abilities. So you'd have to say so far we've actually had 3 decent races in which you can test a driver's performance against his teammate. And that is exactly what we're going to be doing. We're looking at the qualifying performance against your teammate. Your teammate is the only one with the same machinery, and that is how you can determine if a driver is slow. Obviously, comparing Alex Albon up against Max Verstappen is a bit... Max Verstappen is one of those drivers that once in a generation, I don't know, once every decade or so, a driver like Max Verstappen comes along, has the balls to stick it to the establishment, to the already established drivers, Hamilton, Vettel, etc. Back in 2016, remember Mexico in 2016 when he was just fresh in the Red Bull and he was not hounding Vettel, but defending slightly aggressively, but really, really well against Vettel, and it riled him, it enraged him, and that's what Verstappen does so well. He defends exceptionally well, he attacks exceptionally well, and he will drag everything he can out of that Red Bull. But comparing Albon to that is a bit difficult, but that is exactly what I'm going to try and do today to determine whether he is actually as slow as people are making him out to be. As he does get a lot of stick. He does definitely get a lot of stick. So I've just pulled up a little table of the qualifying battles so far. 3 races, and there are so far only 3 teams that have got a whitewash. 1 driver dominating in qualifying. We're looking at qualifying only as there are just far less variables to contend with rather than the race. In qualifying, everyone drives as quickly as they can, all the time. The race, yes, you drive as quickly as you can, but there's all sorts of, it's long, it's variables, confusing, not as clear cut as qualifying, where you have just 20 minutes or up to an hour, depending on how long you're in the session for, to drive as quickly as you can to get as far up the grid as possible. It's easy to compare. I need to work on how I say things. Anyway, 3 teams have got a whitewash, one of them being Red Bull, 3-0 against Verstappen. The other, AlphaTauri, 3-0 to Gasly against Kvyat, and Williams, 3-0 to Russell against Latifi. And so far in all of Russell's Formula 1 career, he is yet to be out-qualified by a teammate. That is insane. That is an incredible record. He was a rookie last year against, technically yes, an experienced Formula 1 driver who's been out of the sport for a little while, but to not be out-qualified by a teammate is a solid record. So what I'm going to do now is basically look at each race, race 1 Austria, race 2 Styria, race 3 Hungary, and look at the gaps to each teammate at that race. And it's going to look a little bit like this, just a basic table, where in Austria, race number 1, we have Williams at the top. Russell had the biggest gap to his teammate in Austria, almost 0.6 of a second. Haas, Grosjean was in front of Magnussen by half a second. Renault, Ricciardo was in front by 0.4, and then we get to Red Bull. Albon was only slower than Verstappen by 0.3, almost 0.4 of a second, and he was only P4 in that list of drivers. So you'd have to say, definitely not the slowest compared to your teammate. You then get to Styria, and he's a place lower. He's 5th, bang in the middle. Yes, he's half a second down, but Styria was in the rain, and if you remember, Hamilton stormed to that pole position, 1.2 seconds clear of anybody else, and 1.4 seconds clear of his teammate in the same car, in the same overpowered, ridiculous Mercedes, 1.4 seconds to his teammate. But again, Russell, 2.1 seconds. If people think the gap from Hamilton to Bottas was incredible at the top, Russell, why wasn't this mentioned? 2.1 seconds. Yes, Latifi was knocked out in Q1 and Russell got through to Q2, but still the overall gap, 2.1 seconds. No one's really mentioned that. But again, moving back to the topic of Alex Albon, he's slipped down. Yes, the gap has slightly increased. It's rainy, different conditions, but he's no longer in the top 4. He's now 5th in this list. But then we get to Hungary, and Hungary is where he tops the list of being slowest compared to your teammate. 8.5 tenths slower than Max Verstappen. Russell, again, 8.5 tenths, just 200ths behind Verstappen's time against his teammate there. But you'd have to say that, looking at this trend, he's not the slowest against his teammate. And that is evident in the next little table that I pulled up, against the overall, just adding up all of those times, or minusing depending on who was quicker in the session, and you can see he's 4th. He's 4th. You've got Russell in 3 races. He's 3.5 seconds quicker over 3 races than Latifi. Yes, Latifi's a new driver, but 3.5 seconds, that's incredible. Racing Point, Stroll, 1.9 seconds clear of Perez over 3 races. AlphaTauri, Gasly, 1.8 seconds, almost 1.8 seconds clear of Kvyat. And then you get to Alex Albon, P4 on that list, just 1.779 seconds behind Verstappen. But going back to the list of teams that had the whitewash, the clean sweep list, we've got Williams, Russell dominating, AlphaTauri and Gasly in second, with Red Bull and Verstappen in third. And they're the 3 teams that have had the clean sweep. And he's the closest to his teammate of all of those teams that have had the clean sweep. So technically, no, he's not slow. Yes and no. So yes, he is, because he is 8 tenths down on his teammate in dry conditions, or half a second down in wet conditions. But comparing him to other versions of this, because that's what we're comparing him to. We're comparing him to his teammate. So why don't we do that with AlphaTauri? Why don't we do that with Williams? Why don't we do that with Racing Point? He's not that slow, and that is the point that I'm trying to make. Alex Albon isn't as slow as people are making him out to be. He just isn't. He just isn't. Yes, it's not like the overall pace, the Alfa Romeo, the Haas, the Renault, the Ferrari and the McLaren, which are all just about 3 tenths and under 3 tenths of a second. That is where the teams are nice and even. That's where you would like to be. You'd like to be jostling between them. And unfortunately, Alex Albon is in the 1.7 seconds behind, but he's not that slow compared to the other drivers that are equally that slow, if that makes sense. He's always the quickest of the slower drivers compared to your teammate. Compared to the teammate. I hope this is making sense. I've kind of pieced this together a little bit quickly. I was going to go over the 2019 results when he joined Red Bull Belgium, second half of the season, something like that, up until the last half, but so much data. It's so much data to go through. I might end up making another video on this if I do have a bit more time to go over all of that, and I probably will. Maybe. I'm not sure. But I'm just going to talk a little bit now about the races. Now that I've shown some data to back up the fact that he isn't as slow as people are making him out to be, I'm just going to sort of talk just generally about Red Bull and just them and how much pressure Alex is probably under right now. So clearly, looking at my little tables that have just come before, there are drivers who are underperforming against their teammate much, much worse than Alex Albon is. And that includes people like Grosjean against Magnussen, who's just underperforming massively. And this is now also talking about the races as well, because it's 3-0 to Magnussen in the races. You've got Kvyat on Gasly, or Gasly beating Kvyat a lot. You've then got the Racing Points occasionally. It's not as big as a story as people are making it out to be at all. The main issue again lies in the fact that it is Red Bull. He is driving for a top team, a team that is fighting constantly for points, a team that is fighting constantly for podiums and wins and hopefully championships. But looking at the state the 2020 is going at the moment, it's already over. Mercedes 121 points, Red Bull like 55 or something. They're 60 odd points down already by round 3. It's done. But that's just the way the sport goes, unfortunately. But if we take a look back over race 1, he was unlucky. He was incredibly unlucky. He was in prime podium position, at least prime podium positions there. He was P3 at one point. Getting past Hamilton, getting past Bottas would have been easy on the softer tyres compared to the two Mercedes. But he was unlucky, got punted off by Hamilton. Hamilton got the penalty, but Verstappen or Albon retired. Whether it was because of the punt or not too sure, because Verstappen also retired for an engine issue, and it seemed like Albon retired because of an engine issue, but they kind of played it off that it was because of the punt. So maybe if he hadn't have been punted, would his car still have broken down? Not sure, but you'd have to say he was definitely at least on course for a podium, and he believes in himself that he was on course for a victory. So you'd have to say that is just an unlucky motorsport happens kind of race. Now race 2, people seem to forget about this one, apparently. He was P4, only 11 seconds down on Verstappen, who was P3. That's not bad. That isn't a bad performance. If you look back over Ferrari's performances with Vettel and Raikkonen, that's exactly where Raikkonen was. And no one said that he was slow. No one was lambasting him and saying, oh, he's under threat and whatever. That was what Raikkonen was doing, and that was what helped Ferrari fight for the title. So why aren't people supporting Albon and saying that he's doing good? I don't understand. And then finally, we get to race 3. The car was shit. No, neither driver liked the car. Unfortunately, he did qualify P13. Verstappen was only P7, but he managed to fight back through all of that traffic through definitely faster cars, and he was P5 at the end of it. Only 3 places behind Verstappen, who just finished P2. That is a astonishing performance. That is a fast performance. Alex Albon is not slow. He just drives a Red Bull. That is the main issue, unfortunately. And Red Bull are cutthroat. If you are not performing at Verstappen's level, you're done. It's a sorry state of affairs for that team, but the amount of rejects that they've got, that even if they were to drop Albon, they're going to have to pick up an already rejected Red Bull driver. They've got 2 currently in AlphaTauri, in Gasly and Kvyat. It would be shambolic if they picked up Gasly or Kvyat again and swapped him for Albon. They can't do that. They just can't. So they have to keep Albon, but Albon is not slow. This video surely proves that. Yeah, I think that is a quick, nice little 15-ish minute video there, talking about Alex Albon, some bits of data pulled from the current 2020 season as well, and just some little bits about the race. He's definitely better than Gasly. You'd have to say he's better than Gasly. Gasly had his unlucky moments, yes, definitely, but in the races that he finished, he was only P6 or P7 or sometimes P5, and not really ballsy like Alex Albon is in defending. He would struggle to get past cars. Albon managed to defend brilliantly from Sergio Perez until Perez tried to do exactly what Lewis Hamilton did and punt him off the track to get him out the way. That's incredible defending against a car that was clearly quicker. Every time, fastest lap, Sergio Perez, fastest lap, Sergio Perez, and Albon was holding him off. But I think that is all I've got for you today, guys. Hopefully you can now see that Alex Albon isn't that slow. He's just driving for the most cutthroat team and the most ruthless team when it comes to underperforming against Max Verstappen. But yes, that's all I've got for you today, guys. I hope you have enjoyed, and I will catch you in the next video with whatever and whenever I decide to make it. I'll see you guys then.